in the ashes of a scorched earth, where the sky had long since turned the color of rust and the winds carried nothing but death, humanity had carved out artificial sanctuaries. Massive domes sealed off from the outside world. These climate-controlled biodomes were the last habitable places on the planet. Oxygen was artificially generated. Water was purified endlessly in massive recycle tanks. Crops were grown under synthetic sunlight. Humanity was caged but alive. It had been over a century since the Great Collapse, when the atmosphere had disintegrated under the weight of relentless pollution and solar flares, had burned away the last protective layers of ozone. The outer world became a barren wasteland of heat and radiation. People called it the Bone Earth. The biodomes were humanity's last gamble, and for a while it seemed they had succeeded. The domes were interconnected by underground transit tunnels, guarded heavily, and monitored for any contamination. Each dome functioned independently, with its own leadership, power systems, and life protocols. Dome 5, known officially as Biogenesis Unit 5, was the largest. It was also the first to fall. A routine system update in Dome 5's biolab went tragically wrong. A leak from a cryo-storage vault containing experimental adaptive cells, designed decades ago to combat atmospheric degradation, entered the water purification system. At first, the changes were subtle. People became hyper-aware, faster, more reactive. But within a week, their skin had turned an iridescent gray, and their eyes lost all trace of humanity. They stopped speaking. Then they stopped being human altogether. They didn't rot like the zombies in the old stories. These were not shambling corpses. They evolved with alarming speed, adapting to environments and outsmarting dome security. Their skin became resistant to radiation, their vision adapted to all light spectra, and their strength quadrupled. These were predator zombies, hyper-adaptive, instinct-driven monsters. All contact with Dome 5 ceased in less than 10 days. Surveillance drones sent to investigate were torn from the sky. The last image transmitted was a single word scrawled in blood across a reinforced glass panel. Run. Command Central at Dome 1 ordered a full quarantine. All tunnels to Dome 5 were sealed with plasma welds. The incident was buried under security protocol classifications. Only the scavenger crews, rogue freelancers who ventured into collapsed domes for tech and supplies, knew the truth. Lex Arden was the leader of Scavenger Crew 9, an elite group contracted under the table by Dome officials to retrieve key biotech components from Dome 5. The mission was simple. Get in, grab the cell reactor core from the medical labs, and get out before nightfall. Of course, no one really knew if Dome 5 had a nightfall anymore. Lex's team included Mila Tran, a geneticist turned medic, Jarrow Flint, a weapons specialist with nerves of steel and a vendetta against the system, and Echo, a semi-autonomous drone with AI capabilities who'd been with Lex longer than any human. They entered through a forgotten access shaft near the old ventilation grids, a route Echo had mapped from outdated blueprints. The first thing that hit them was the silence. Dome 5 was dead quiet. No hum of life systems, no voices, no wind. Just the oppressive weight of artificial air pressing against the inside of their helmets. Echo, run a bioscan, Lex whispered. The drone emitted a low-frequency ping and responded after a beat. Multiple heat sources detected. Movement erratic. Unknown biosignatures. Recommend immediate caution. Lex gripped his pulse rifle tighter. Copy that. Stay tight. Mila, you got eyes on the reactor. Mila nodded, looking over her wrist screen. Lab should be 1 level down. South corridor. But the maps may be obsolete. We can't trust any automated doors or power paths. They moved quietly, every footstep echoing too loudly in the abandoned dome. Along the way, they passed shattered glass panels, blood-streaked floors, and messages scratched into the walls. desperate pleas, prayers, warnings. One read, "We are not dying. We are changing." In the old surgical wing, they found the first body, or what was left of it. A technician, still in uniform, eyes completely black, jaw dislocated unnaturally wide. His chest cavity had exploded outward as if something had burst from within. Suddenly, Echo flared red. Biosignature closing. 30 meters. Speed. Excessive. Before anyone could react, something slammed into Jero from above, dragging him into the darkness. Screams echoed. Gunfire flashed like strobe lights. Lex caught a glimpse, gray flesh, skeletal frame, and glowing red veins pulsing beneath translucent skin. "Fall back," Lex shouted. "Form triangle defense." They retreated into a sealed med bay, Jero bleeding from a deep gash along his thigh. Mila scrambled to patch him up while Lex secured the door. Outside, inhuman howls echoed, then stopped, too suddenly. "We're being studied," Mila said, trembling. "They're watching how we respond." Lex cursed under his breath. "We're not in a dome full of monsters. We're in a dome full of intelligent predators." Echo floated silently, then spoke. "New data. Biosignatures merging. Adaptive learning behavior confirmed. Possible hive mind activity suspected." Jero groaned. "Hive mind? You mean they're linked?" Lex nodded grimly. "If one learns, they all learn." Time was no longer on their side. They reached the lab only to find the reactor core missing. Mila scanned the room and located it, barely intact, in a service elevator that had failed midway between levels. Lex climbed into the shaft, rappelled down, and secured the core to his back. It was heavy, warm, humming with unstable energy. Then came the shriek. They poured in from all directions, crawling along walls, hanging from ceilings, some walking upright like they remembered how. Lex tossed the core up into Mila's arms and turned to cover the rear. He fired until his rifle overheated, then switched to his sidearm. Jero took a creature down with a plasma grenade but was overrun moments later. One of them bit into his shoulder and twisted. His scream was cut short. Mila sobbed, dragging the core with trembling arms. "We can't let this infection jump domes, Lex." "I know," he roared, tossing another thermal charge into the horde. "Go. I'll hold them." But Mila didn't run. She activated the tunnel override on her wristband. Tunnel 6 access will open for 20 seconds. After that, it welds shut permanently. Lex froze. "That's suicide." She stared at him, eyes filled with resolve. "One of us has to make it out with the core. One of us has to warn the others." A creature pounced from the darkness and was torn apart by Echo, who dove into it with its built-in saw blade. But the damage to Echo was irreversible. The drone's lights flickered. "I'll carry the core," Echo rasped. "No, you won't," Lex whispered, slinging the pack over his shoulder and yanking Mila into a sprint. "We both make it." They reached the tunnel access. Behind them, the mutated horde surged like a tide, screeching and scrambling. Lex threw one last incendiary bomb as the doors groaned open. The blast blinded the corridor behind them. The pair dove into the transit shaft just as the weld seal engaged. A burst of heat, then silence. They were in the dark tunnel between domes, safe for the moment. Mila collapsed, gasping. "We have to tell command. The infection, it's intelligent, evolving. It won't stay contained." Lex looked back toward the sealed dome and then ahead into the long tunnel. "This wasn't just an accident," he said slowly. "They were experimenting with these cells for a reason." "What do you mean?" "I think Dome 5 wasn't the first test. And it won't be the last." The core on his back pulsed quietly, a heartbeat of stolen science. And far behind them, deep within Dome 5, something laughed in the dark. Not a roar, not a shriek, a laugh. Something remembered being human. And it was coming.